Hello chess friends, in today's video we are going to be taking a look at the game which was played between two women. The first one was the Shuvalova Polina. She was white, and that's international master woman from Russia. Her rating is 2508. She played against Garifulina Leia, and she is rated 2446. Shuvalova was white and Garifulina was black, so let's take a look at what happened. The game started with one e4, we got c5, traditional Sicilian defense. Now we got knight f3, black goes d6, and here we got the move d4. Shuvalova is going for the open Sicilian. She's trying to open up the game, to play for more and not play some delayed lines where white is not doing some aggressive approaches instantly. After d4 we got c takes d4, knight d4, and now we got the move knight f6, typical Sicilian move. Now we got typical knight c3 defending the pawn on e4, and at this moment black can literally play so many different moves, such as moves like a6, such as moves like e6, such as moves like g6, such as moves like knight c6. And she decided to play the move a6, knight of variation, very popular line, and now we got the move bishop g5. In this situation, also white in the traditional knight of variation, which is very popular nowadays. I mean, all the time it was popular. White can play so many different ideas. White can play rook g1, white can play bishop e2, white can play bishop e3, white can play bishop g5, white can play f4, and white can play knight b3. Maybe, and also white can play bishop c4 as well. Also bishop d3. So basically 8 to 10 moves are basically possible at this position. That clearly shows how much this opening is really popular and full of different ideas. However, in the game, Shuvalova decided to go bishop g5. After bishop g5, black can play e6, and it would be normal to play something like e6 here, but Garifulina decided to play the move knight bd7, connecting the knights, and this is a very interesting moment of the game where white actually decided to play something which is not so often seen in the opening, and that's moving the bishop back to e3. First of all, this idea from the practical perspective seems like it's a bit like the question is why this. Basically, it doesn't look so great because what is white doing? White is moving the piece twice in the opening early, but basically the point is when in the knight order there's another knight from b to d7, and there's already the knight on f6. The point which is going on over here is that right now white can actually just play g4, g5, and this knight from f6 can no longer jump back to d7. So this is the key issue which black is having in this case. That's why over here I wanted to show that after e6, bishop e3, bishop e7, g4, let's say knight c6 and g5, black can simply play knight e7, and this knight has a space for going back. While when there's a knight from b to d7, this is no longer possible, and that's why bishop on e3 is actually making sure that he is doing very correct job. We got e6, very typical and standard in the most of the Sicilians, g4, and now we got h6. The idea is very simple again, stopping g5, not allowing ways to attack, and now we got the move a4. Interesting move. The idea is b5. I mean, the idea from black was basically b5 at some moment, but now Shuvalova is stopping that, and black is no longer having a b5. Although this move actually creates a slight weaknesses around the queen side, so if white decides to go long castling, that might be a little bit risky. However, by looking at this position, we can notice that black is having pretty much his piece is kind of passive and they are not doing so extremely much. So in this case, white shouldn't be really worried about the king yet. Now we got b6, preparing bishop b7. We got bishop g2. White is defending the pawn on e4, and now twice. So white no longer needs to worry about e4. Also, white is preparing e5. That's a very cool idea. Let's say black goes bishop e7. That will blunder the game, do it to e5, and black can resign. So we got bishop b7. And one thing over here, if we compare those two bishops, the bishop from g2 is hitting the long diagonal, but he's also hitting his pawn, while the bishop on b7 is also hitting the long diagonal, but before hitting the whole diagonal, he's hitting the pawn on e4. So if we take a look from this point, it seems like white's bishop from g2 is actually quite more passive than the black's bishop on b7, because this one is defending while this one is attacking. So that kind of makes sense. But what is kind of important to say is that white shouldn't be worried here, because he's better in space, especially if we see how black's 4 pawns are standing. White has a more space, and because of that, black is no longer having any clear intentions and possibilities to actually cause problems in the white's position when we talk about that bishop from g2. So now here we got h4. Now we got knight c5 by black, and here we got the move f3 by Shuvalova. So she decided to actually play f3, and that's most likely the only way here to defend the pawn properly on e4. The truth is that it's really correct that this bishop on g2 is little bit remaining weird and closed on g2. He's no longer having the ability to control this diagonal that much. But again, white has a space, white has a pretty stable pawn structure and activity, so it will affect on the future of this game. What we got, rook c8, putting the rook on the open file, making sure that, like in the typical Najdorf variation, black is actually trying to put the rook on c8, like the open file, the open c file. And now we got queen d2 by Shuvalova. She's preparing to long castle eventually, but also she's connecting the queen and the bishop, getting queen in the game, and this feels very comfortable for white. So now at this point we got the move g6 by black. Black prepares bishop g7 eventually, and now we got long castle. On the first question, maybe the question is this long castle really supposed to happen? But in my case, yeah, yes, because king is very safe, and white can bring the rooks. He connected the rook, so he can bring the rook to h1, and pretty much white is available to put the pressure around these two files. What is worth saying is that the white king is no longer in danger, because black simply didn't prepare the attack. One of the things that clearly shows this is that black didn't develop his bishop from f8. Also, the queen is not outside the game. So it pretty much seems like if black wants to prepare something, Garifulina really needs to find good ideas in order to prepare more. What we got next is an e5 move, and this is first interesting moment where the thing started being a little bit serious more. She decided to go e5 to put the pressure on the knight, but she left two things. Number one, d5 square is now long-term idea and object which white is going to try to control. In case black can play d5, black will solve most of the problems. d5 is also very typical in the Sicilian defense, so whoever gets control of the d5 for long term, he's going to most likely control the other things which are very important. Another thing here is this d6 pawn. d6 pawn kind of remained how it remained, and he remained like a backward pawn. He's in either variation, he's very often object for white, which is he going to attack. So this move is putting a big responsibility with himself, the move e5, but this move also is basically like trying to really little bit passive, make it passive the white's knight, and try to really make sure to get some ideas and get some activity. What we got over here is a move knight b3. So in this case, it's worth mentioning that Shuvalova actually she had the move knight from d to e2, connecting the knights and making sure to have the control of the d file, but she actually decided to play knight b3, which is the move which makes sense, but at the same time it allows knight b3 where the double pawns would occur, and after that d5. And in this case, if black saw that, so if Garifulina saw that, then Shuvalova would have a difficult task to figure out what is going on. But instead, in the game, this is a first very critical moment where black made almost a blunder, and this is in my case this is a strategical blunder. Number one, black is no longer picking up the d5 square control. Number two, it seems like black is passivizing the position with the knight move, and eventually, naturally, by looking at this position, it seems like white is controlling the game pretty well right now. What happened next is king b1, and now we got the move bishop c6, putting the pressure on the pawn on a4. We got takes, and now b takes. The best move, the idea is very simple: get the rook on the b file. Since the white did long castle, his king is not so easily safe without black being available to put the pressure. Black can actually do it, so this move b takes c5 is actually making very good sense. Now we got bishop f1. Shuvalova is doing the great thing, and if we take a look at this position, the only piece which is literally doing nothing is a bishop from g2. So what is she doing is that she's doing the great thing by making sure to put the bishop from f1 on c4. And now black is simply under the pressure, white is putting great pressure, and black really needs to start thinking about how to solve the problems, because there are more problems for black. First of all, the a6 pawn is not doing great. He's under attack, and white is potentially going to put more pressure over there. d6 has the typical weaknesses, and the third thing, which is very important, is a king. The king is no longer doing so great. Black didn't castle, and that has a consequences. Like no castling at the time means very often sometimes that long-term struggle is coming. What we got in the game is queen a5. The idea behind queen a5 is very simple: bring the queen from the not so active square, which is a starting square, to the a5. There this queen looks like a very, very active piece. And now Russian woman Shuvalova, international master, she goes b3, connecting the pawn structure and not really worrying about any attacks. And now Garifulina goes rook b8. The idea is simply taking on a4. So let's say something randomly like bishop e2, there will be bishop a4 potentially. And this can start causing problems for white because of simple pressure which black is doing. However, Shuvalova goes king a1. The idea is to move the king outside of the pin, and now we go to move knight b6. Logical move and important moment of the game where black is actually making sure to put the pressure around the queen side. So Garifulina is making sure to put the pressure, so actually she can try to create some disbalance. Again, like I mentioned before, black is anyway struggling with the bishop on f8 and the king on e8, and they really need to get into the game, the bishop to get activated, and the king needs to probably go and run, because the problems around the center might happen, and we'll see what happened. Now Shuvalova found a great option and great practical decision, knight b1, making sure that the queens have to be traded, and after that the weaknesses are coming up. So what is the point? Whenever there is in a position the weak pawn or the weak square and the weaknesses, the side who has a queen has potential chances to maybe cause some disbalance because of the nature of the queen. However, in this case, the queens are traded off, and this is automatically leading the position to the very great end game and practical middle game for white, where black is struggling. The problem which black is having is not only with his pawns, but also pieces such as the bishops are not doing great. And now Garifulina defends bishop b7, and here h5, we got rook d8, and here we got the move knight c4. White brings the knight on c4, making sure that the knight here is offering the trade of the knights. I mean, of course, this also makes a threat of the free knight. So Garifulina accept, and now we got the tempo move bishop c4. It's worth mentioning here that this bishop is a perfect one, and he is controlling the light squares. He's not allowing d5. Pretty much white is just having really good position, especially if we talk about the pawn structure and how all of the pawns are actually extremely safe, and I can't really find so many problems for black and for white at this point, because they simply don't exist. Now what happened is that Garifulina blundered, and this move, king move, doesn't look like it's a blunder, but it's actually very serious blunder, and you can stop the video in order to find what happened or what is the best. But what happened is Shuvalova actually found the idea, and after pawn takes g6, f takes g6, she found the move bishop g5. She put the pressure, the king and the rook, and now after black takes, there will be rook h8. So Garifulina blundered this idea most likely, and after this situation the game is pretty done. We got king d7, black didn't actually decided to damage the pawn structure more. We got bishop d8, king d8, and now we got the move g5. After doing g5, white is just putting the pressure at the king side and making sure that black is no longer going to improve the king side. Now we got h5, and now great move bishop f7. The idea is very simple. Pick up the pawn on g6 and try to not allow black any counterattack. The black's pieces are all overall limited, and they can't do so much, so this makes perfect sense. After bishop e7, we got bishop d6, Garifulina goes h4, and now we got the move rook from d to g1, defends the pawn. We got rook g8, bishop f5, and after rook takes, bishop takes, white picks up the open file, making sure to start and get a final execution of the position, and black is pretty much having problems to play. We got bishop e3, and now we got rook g8 check. Well, after king c7, rook g7, king b8, we got rook h7. White is now looking at the pawn on h4, so we got bishop g5, and now very good move rook d7. The game is pretty done. Now after just few moves, black just resigned, where after d5, ed, bishop c8, we got rook f7. White defends the bishop, wins the game, and Shuvalova really played a great game. What is interesting today is that it's her birthday, so she played a really good game, and congratulations for the game as well. And yeah, so please make sure to put the comments down below the video if you like it, the game, and thank you for your support, and see you in the next video. Bye.